personal. The portrait is supposed to be based on her own personal experience, so we get to know Caryn more too. The talk is entitled Victim or Villain. Victim or Villain. Let's welcome Caryn!
You are now members of an extemporaneous jury. There are several things for you to consider, but mostly you need to consider who is truly the victim and who is the villain. Only you can decide. Madam Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, and welcome guest. Please indulge me and allow me to give you some background so you may better understand this story. It was Thanksgiving 1975, and I have always had a fabulous mother, and she was fabulous back then too. Loving, caring, concerned. However, my mother is a perfectionist to the highest degree. 5'5", always in all black, big silver jewelry, hair and makeup, perfect. There was nothing less than perfection that was good enough. There was no situation where she would allow anything less than perfection. Just to give you an idea, our house at that time was decorated in an incredibly formal manner. The sofa had gold silk material on it. The ladies' chairs, white silk. In my parents' bedroom, the bedspread was white silk with heavy white silk drapes and gold embroidered borders. The carpet, white plush wool. My father unilaterally decides to bring home a dog from the pound. A beagle, black, brown, white, floppy ears, big soulful eyes, looking up at us. My younger sister and I, Mommy, please, 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 can we keep her? Please, can we keep her? Please, please, like only girls can do. And my mother was furious. Furious, you could see steam rising practically. But she acquiesced and allowed us to keep her for the weekend because we would generally be home to watch. My sister and I, in a moment of fabulous creativity, decided to name the dog Snoopy. We didn't even consider that this old dog might have had a previous name. She was going to be Snoopy for us. And it was my job to get that dog trained. I would take that dog on long walks, and I would beg and plead, Snoopy, 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 please, you have to get trained. You can't pee on the floor. Mom won't allow you to stay if you pee on the floor. Please. Well, Snoopy had her own way with me. Off she went, just as beagles do, followed her nose, and just pulled me along for the ride. When we got home, Snoopy was so happy to see the rest of the family, she peed on the floor. When we went out on a family trip, like to go out to dinner or something, we put Snoopy in the kitchen dinette area because it had a tile floor, put the gate up, go do our thing. When we came back, Snoopy was so excited, she peed on the floor. Despite those bladder control issues, Snoopy was actually growing on my mother. And the rest of the family, we adored her. Monday came, and she didn't have to go back to the pound. My mother was going to try it. Both of my parents worked. The kids, of course, went off to school. Snoopy was put behind that gate, fresh water, long walk prior to all of this, and off we all go. Well, I come home that night. My sister and my mother were already in the house. It was eerily mother comes out of the kitchen, the steam rising again. Do not talk to that dog. Do not look at that dog. We are waiting for your father. That dog is leaving tonight. I look around. All of the magazines from the magazine rack were ripped into tiny, tiny pieces, and it was strewn all over the foyer, the living room, and off into my parents' bedroom. The potted plants were toppled. Many of the pots were broken, and the plants with all the soil were dragged through the foyer onto my mother's white wool carpeting, up onto that white silk bedspread, and what was worse, there were paw prints on the drapes. The big screw you. How could this have happened? Apparently, when my mom got home, the gate was still up. This was a diagram of the kitchen and dinette. So here's the kitchen. It was very small. Here's the kitchen and the dinette. The only plausible explanation was that this dog jumped onto one of the dining room chairs and then jumped onto the table and then jumped over this chair, over the gate, onto the floor in the foyer, which was a very tall order for a fairly short dog with very small legs, but we had no other explanation. My father comes home a little bit later. The tension in the house was palpable. My mother, the great cleaner, had not touched a thing. Not a word needed to be spoken. The dog went back to the pound. And what was worse is we were never allowed to speak of the incident again. So now there's the story. But the questions remain. Was Snoopy a victim of circumstance? Was Snoopy just lonely or possibly spoiled by a previous owner? Or was Snoopy evil, malicious, or possibly possessed? Was my mother a victim of my father's decision? Or was she a victim of her own need for order? Or was my mother actually a villain that only Snoopy could sense? The truth is in question. Only you can decide. Madam Toastmaster.